Hello, guys. Hopefully, you can hear me. I'm trying out live in a whole new setting, and reason why I started this live is because I just can't sleep over this conversation I had with a rather popular crowdfunding platform, SME platform, and after chatting with him yesterday, the ideas we came up with, I feel this set of ideas can definitely help a lot of you out there who are either from the social enterprise groups or in the financial industry, or maybe you are from a very strict corporate group, or maybe a corporate company, corporate startup, um, those dealing with investors. What I'm going to share today will be really, really, really helpful for you guys because the topic today is about how you can turn a crisis into how you can use social media to turn a crisis to win you more fans and loyal raving fans and followers and make them empathize with you. So here's how it went. I had a coffee with the founder of the crowdfunding platform, and we shared about what the industry faces in terms of their challenges. And as a crowdfunding platform, you work with two sets of parties. One is your investor who will finance the the crowdfunding, and then you have the small medium businesses or maybe the micro businesses as well. So the crowdfunding platform acts as the middleman between the investor and the businesses. So typically, their main concern is how to maintain the interests of both sides. It's a bit of a chicken and egg. They need to win fans. They need to win the confidence of the small businesses to subscribe to their platform, and they need to win the hearts of the investor to be willing to pump in capital to them so that they can help with the micro businesses. So that's just a little bit of the mechanics of how it works. So typically everything works like clockwork. The investor, they are confident with the investment or the project, they put in some money, and then this company, they will take the money and they help the small businesses. And the small business make some earnings, and then it's being shared with the investors. So that's how it works in general. But this particular company, they are pretty well known for their Islamic finance product. They are Sharia compliant. They do a lot of due diligence to ensure that as much as possible, or actually they really do a lot of work to ensure that um, the Islamic finance protocols or regulation are strictly complied. And it's really commendable the kind of work they do. And not only that, because they are using the funds to help small businesses and micro businesses to really level up their business so that they can impact the community, they can grow further because majority of these small businesses, about 95% of these small businesses make up the backbone of the economy, especially in Indonesia. However, only less than 20% of these businesses actually get access to funding. And imagine for the Muslim or Islamic companies, they are a much more smaller minority out of that subset of group. So we are working with a really, really small group who are really, really marginalized because of the niche or the structure of their product or company, just by default, not by design, but just because of how things are. So the existence of this crowdfunding platform is definitely a blessing to them. But then for investors, sometimes they don't see the mechanics of this, they don't see the hard work, they don't see what's on the ground. And that's where sometimes there's communication breakdown or not enough conversation happens. So typically sometimes what can happen is that there's difficulty in materializing the investment, and that means there's going to be delays in the investors getting their payout. And I feel that's a pretty straightforward, that's pretty normal in crowdfunding or any investment platforms. But how you deal with that kind of crisis makes a world of difference. And that's where the ideas begin pouring out. Because how these platforms typically deal, there are the three ideas I'll share mainly. So number one is that typically these platforms, they deal with crisis by going into, I would say, managerial mode. They just inform and update. They show their due diligence, and then They hope that investors will stay calm and trust the process. But there's one major thing that these platforms overlook. That is, they need to understand who their clients are. When you talk about branding, you need to know who are your clients, what's your client persona or audience persona. Who are you talking to? Who are your stakeholders? So in this case, their stakeholders were mostly retail investors, means people who invest in very, very small amounts, a few $100s to a few thousands of their savings in hopes that they can get some payout from the investment. And at the same time, you're working with an audience in Indonesia as well. Indonesia, which has a really colorful ecosystem of small. That differs from state to state or even city to city, and even their business ecosystem might be different from different areas. So there's another layer of challenges. And if you throw in Islamic finance on top of that, on top of all of that, it's really not easy to navigate through that whole conversation on its own. But then your main people that you need to deal with is the people who you can't connect with regularly, which are the investors, primarily from Singapore. And that's where it gets interesting because this, when you deal with retail investors, you need to know that they are those who invest small amount. This small amount, I mean, for them, maybe a chunk of their savings, and it's not that easy for them to recover that small amount either, even if it's a few hundred. And naturally, they are also very typically very responsive. They are also a bit more emotional. So they, if you come across during crisis as someone who is authoritative, or you come across as someone who's just process driven, these retail investors may not swallow it so well. They may find that you are trying to push the blame away, or they may find that you are not embracing the situation well because they can't understand the process, they can't visualize the process from an email or just a simple post. They need to visualize something. They are very emotion driven. I mean, we have friends who are retail investors as well. So whenever the stock market uh, fluctuates, goes up and down, you can imagine their sentiments as well. They will get very reactive. It's not an abnormal story, so it's very typical that it happens. So my advice is if you're dealing with low ticket or retail investors, you want to look at them by winning their hearts over. If you're dealing with high ticket investors, means people who are institutional investors, organization investors, they are not very emotional driven. They are very process driven. They are more tactical. They do not want to know the hearts, what's going on the ground too much. They want to know what's your process, what's your step by step in order to fulfill that. So when there's a mismatch in methods of how you want to assure the retail investor, you're using the high ticket investor method to assure the low ticket investors, there's a mismatch, and then that's where the confusion starts to begin. So what you can do differently is how you want to use social media to win them over. So number one is you want to be able to show the stories of the micro businesses, the small medium employees, a small medium enterprise, or small medium businesses, the stories of how they have benefited from the financing. That's tip number one. Show the stories of the people who have benefited from the financing because these people, they are the 95%. They are the backbone of the economy. And majority of the time, they are no different from you and me. They are the everyday people. So when you show their stories, you create that connection, you show that relevance, and you show that you're representing them and you're not here to exploit either parties. And when people can see a visual, it's easier when they can see a short vlog or a short video or reel or maybe even TikTok of how what goes on, how do they benefit from the funding from the investors. You actually win the heart over because they are now emotionally invested into the story, emotionally invested into the progress of that company. They are emotionally invested into the development of how the crowdfunding platform is supporting them. So when you share, imagine you share the story maybe 2 to 3 months after the funding happens, and you do it again, you share in another 3 to 6 months' time of what the progress has been since then, and you can show the comparison through stories. That's important. You must share through stories, not in facts and figures. Don't show them the numbers straight up. Don't talk about percentages. Don't talk about facts and figures. Don't talk about roadmap. Don't talk about plans. Talk about how it affects them, probably on a personal level first and communal level. And if you're investing in slightly bigger, small business, medium businesses, usually the founder stories are not as relevant then because they are probably a cut above the rest. It's no longer the everyday people. Now you want to show the stories of the key personnel of the supply chain or the people who are involved in the user experience. Maybe the drivers, the farmers, the pickers, the admin folks, the anyone who are doing the hands-on of the work in the business, and they have powerful stories to share. They are the champions of those businesses, and they are the ones who benefit from the business growing and sustaining. And when the investors are able to visualize and see that their capital have provided livelihood to people in another country, I think they're going to be very emotionally invested into this whole narrative. And those who are emotionally invested, they're going to become your loyal fans. So that's tip number one when you can see the difference. So next part, because when you're working with crowdfunding platforms, there are times where this is where tip number two. There are times where you need to show your own team working hard to materialize the investment. This is where we call behind the scenes. So, for example, if you're working with small, medium businesses in Indonesia or maybe in other countries, and you have teams, remote teams working there who are working on the ground, they are visiting the site, they are visiting the businesses, they are talking to the villagers, they're talking to the communities. You need to show that. You need to show how the team behind the scenes is working tirelessly to materialize the investment, recover the investment as well. And whatever ideas you had to submit to them in your reports, whatever ideas you have been submitting in your email, translate them into videos or short stories. Because when you can do that, when you can show what you do behind the scenes through your social media postings, you realize that you don't need to work as hard to communicate that in your reports, or you don't need to maintain frequent or over communicate during your correspondence through email or reports anymore, because most of it are going to be communicated through your social media. Because the truth is, as an investor, retail investor, how many times do they check their social media, and how many times do they check their email, and how many times do they actually even check the reports? If we give on a scale of 10, probably they check their social media 10 times a day, their emails maybe 3 times, and report never. So we need to know where their attention are and win their attention over and be there to communicate. Or else, what you might see that these retail investors, they definitely have a bit more time. That's the truth. They have a bit more time. Like I said, they're emotional, they are responsive, and if they feel the slightest bit uncomfortable with how things are going, they are going to be bugging you. They're going to be coming after you nonstop, and that's not a good feeling. That's not giving you space. But if you are able to show empathy through your social media posting, you're able to show how your team is working tirelessly to recover investment or materialize the investment or support the community there, they're going to be not only giving you space, they're going to try to help you make it happen. That's what's amazing about using social media to win them over. Now, that's tip number two. Now, the third tip is you need to be confident to talk about sensitive topics. Now, what's the sensitive topics for crowdfunding platform? It's none other than crypto. Now, crypto has disrupted the financial industries and all the financial products. In fact, we thought that through crypto will not disrupt the Islamic finance industry, but unfortunately, there's already words of halal crypto platform, halal crypto products, and there are people who are saying that NFT is approved and crypto is is halal or Sharia compliant, and that is actually diverting investment away from this initial conventional Islamic finance product. So rather than keeping under covers, avoiding the topic, you need to confront this topic and not dismiss crypto, not to put it down, but embrace it as a talking point. That's all. Because you're not trying to compete with them. Do not even try to compete with this platform. But you need to come forward with your own story. You need to move away from statistics, percentage, or earnings because that is a short-term game plan. That is a game plan just to build the hype. Crypto is works a lot on hype as well. I mean, I know it's more than that, but majority of the projects is riding on the hype. And if you ride on the hype as well, you're competing against crypto's hype, and crypto is going to overshadow you anytime. So if you want to work on statistics percentage, you're going to attract people who are only focused on statistics percentage, and they are going to be the ones emailing you every other week asking for the returns and updates. But if you show the stories of the people who are affected from the investors' funding, you show the stories earlier that I shared of the people behind the scenes, the people, the villagers, the workers. You're attracting people who are here because they want to be part of your journey. They are here to want to be part of the story. They want to contribute to the story. And these people are more likely to stay on even when things get difficult. And the best part is when you are a crowdfunding platform and you're working in this kind of group of people, in Indonesia, you're working SME, that's 95% of the population. There's so many stories that you have, and from state to state, there's countless stories. There's so many colorful stories, culture. You will never run out of options or stories that you can use to win them over. However, let's say you're working in crypto, you are riding on promises of of cash, which is not wrong, but it's not something you can do on a long term, given the nature of it. Because you can put a face to it, people will build rapport with your company. When they build rapport with your company, they build that trust. And every dollar that you earn is is helping someone out there. They can see it. When they can see it, they'll continue to support you as well. As compared to crypto, sometimes we are not too sure where does the money go or how is it funding a project, or we can't really put a face to it. But when you have this crowdfunding platform, Sharia compliant, you're helping the Muslim community, you will see that you will be attracting more and more people from the Muslim community, and at the same time you might even attract the non-Muslim community to want to be part of the conversation, want to be part of the narrative that you have created. And it's much more lasting because you're involved in the development of a community. Is very, very different. You need to play that card, and you need to share that crypto is amazing, it's good, it's a new opportunity because it breaks down barriers to employment, to opportunities, to products. But at the same time, what you're doing is building communities. You are building small business. You are building dreams, aspirations. You're fulfilling dreams and aspirations. That is what you should double down on, because for crypto platform, they don't always reveal the benefits. It's more about benefit is you gain earnings. But for this crowdfunding platform, your benefits are people's dreams and aspirations, and people are naturally altruistic. They want to feel good helping people. That is why people donate chunks of money every year. That is why we make donation. That's why we volunteer. And do not dismiss that. Yes, even if you are a crowdfunding platform, even if you're an investment company, you need to know how to double down on emotional selling, because retail investors, they are again emotional. And you may start when you are really good at that, when you can really get really good at emotional selling, you start to attract people who are outside your niche as well. So those are the three tips. But I want to add one more tip, the final bullet. When you do this emotional selling, you share the stories behind the scene, you share the stories of your staff, you share the stories of the small businesses, the workers, the community, the villagers. Compile and curate them. Compile and create all these stories, and then push it to the mainstream media, pitch to the mainstream media, and that will blow up your branding and your reach and marketing to a whole new level, because these places, they're hungry for stories like this, origin stories, stories of people on the ground, those that really touch the heart. And when you can connect this to the mainstream media will work for you to really blow up your story and attract more people who are not originally from your niche to support you in your effort and journey as well. So if you can pull this off, you definitely transform from just a sterile investment firm or crowdfunding platform or just another platform for you to earn money into the people's champion. When you transform into the people's champion, you will get that mandate to support the backbone of the nation or the community. It's a whole new conversation altogether. You become something else, and people will naturally support you throughout the journey. So I think those are the ideas that I urgently need to share. And I think if you guys have more ideas, more feedback, more comments about what I just shared today, please type in the comments, or you can reach out to me in my DMs, and I love to have a chat about it. I think this is a very good topic. We were talking about very sensitive conversations. We're talking about financing, Islamic finance, crypto altogether, and how some companies are trying to figure out to win the hearts of these investors because they are doing good work, but because of the nature of how they use their branding, how they use social media, is very bland, very sterile, and ineffective. Instead, it is working against them instead of helping them. So people thought by posting, just having the presence on social media, or just keeping their page alive is helping them to maintain the presence, but it's actually working against them. So they need to understand and they need to realize very quickly that it's working against them, and they need to switch out to what I just mentioned earlier, or else things are going to get very, very difficult because competition is getting very hard. People are going to get more emotional and more impatient, and they will make it even harder for you to operate and do the good job that you do. So that's all for now. Thanks, guys.